Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription. I'm your host, Matthew Holman. This is the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. And today's dose is all about churn prevention and subscriber activation. This is the top concern for any subscription business, is trying to figure out how to keep people from leaving. So today we're going to dive into some of the things you need to focus on and a lot of things you cannot worry about or just ignore. So how I'm going to start is by walking you through the subscription experience. Now, I was recently at ChargeX, and Jen Gray, the SVP of marketing at Recharge, had this beautiful kind of journey that they put up across the screen, and I'm going to do my best to try to remember that as well as I can. But honestly, I'm going to talk about it in that similar vein. Like, let's understand the subscriber experience a little bit first and how each touch point is really important. Because the problem is with churn is we start thinking about it more like, I guess the metaphor I like to think of is you have a bunch of people in a room, right? And churn is them leaving the room. Okay, so from a metaphor standpoint, we're going to be thinking about a lot of like churn tactics or people focusing on keeping the door closed, making it really hard for people to figure out where the door is, making it really difficult to open that door. That's what a lot of common churn prevention tactics are in the space today across both D2C subscriptions and digital subscriptions. There's a lot of these types of tactics happening. We're going to talk a lot more about what it means to try to get people engaged in the room and doing the activity that keeps them staying in the room instead of leaving. So when we're first talking about subscriptions, the first touch point to worry about is the point of purchase. This is realistically kind of like, other than the first unboxing, and maybe even sometimes bigger than that, can be the most excited somebody can get about your product. Is they've seen an ad, they've been doing some research, maybe they've seen several ads, and they're finally going to pull the trigger, whether it's a supplement, a beauty brand, food, something else that's going to improve their life, or they're going to add to their routine, or that they think they're going to add to their routine. They are making a subscription purchase, okay? And we have tons of other content where we talk about how to get people to opt into that subscription versus taking that one-time purchase. But I want to talk about at this touch point is that how we let people into the room influences a lot of times how they stay. So when we do heavy discounting, when we run a really big special, or as you've probably noticed around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when we're doing this, we're letting in a lot of people. The door is really big. Anybody can come in. We're not checking IDs. We're not doing any of the other validation stuff to get people in the room. Everybody's welcome. And what happens when we have that approach? A lot of people turn around and leave. They come into the room, they look around, they take a sip, or they try something, and then they're gone. That happens a lot with heavy discounting. So, and that's fine. As part of the overall marketing strategy to acquire subscribers, discounting and those types of specials and campaigns are often necessary. When we're thinking about how to really get good at churn prevention, is thinking about what kind of offers can we come up with to make it so that when people come in the room, they're kind of already committed. So I have some previous content, even just a few weeks ago, talking about bulk options. Just this previous week, we had Jordan Narducci with some of the other subscription experts talking about value arbitrage with gifting and other incentives to make the subscription appear more valuable than it actually is. Those are really good methods for people to say, like, hey, they're walking into the room because they see a lot of value here, and they're going to spend more time looking around and trying out what you're offering. And so that's actually a great place to start with churn prevention, is how we let people in the room. Okay. Now, the next step in this churn prevention process is how we onboard subscribers. And this is a really critical piece. It has to do with how we educate people about the product. We can do this via email. We could do this via SMS. We can deliver additional content to people. But we're really looking at how we bring people into the subscription and educate them. So if your product has got something special, whether it's science-backed or a special activation or a secret formula, or it's ethically sourced, or whatever components make it just a little bit different, a little bit special, your founder story, all these really compelling reasons why somebody should care. This is kind of like that intermediate phase of somebody got really excited and they purchased. We're going to kind of like give them a little bit of information while the product is being shipped. And that's a really important thing. So imagine you walk into this room and you're looking around at the menu, you're trying to read a pamphlet, like, what am I doing here? What is available here, right? So the idea of like you walk into Disneyland, they're trying to give you either a map to look around or they're giving you a digital map or a physical map so that you know where you're going, you know what's available. You can see wait lines on the rides, that kind of thing. So we're thinking through how we can try to get people a little educated, a little empowered. Now, that's something that we spend a lot of time doing at Subscription Prescription. And I know a lot of brands that are spending time doing this. One of the biggest opportunities I see is what comes up next. And that is the unboxing and this first initial interaction with the product. One of the biggest risks you have for churn is that first experience. Now, if there's something a little bit different about your product, like in my subscription journey, I've used electric head trimmers, electric flossers, all kinds of different supplements, drinks, all kinds of stuff across the board. And there's just always this really interesting interaction about brands that are investing time in making sure you have a really strong quality first experience with the product. So if I'm finding out in my cancellation flows that people cancel a lot because they thought something was confusing or they didn't know how much to take or something like that, that should be a first product experience. If you're selling a sleep supplement, when should I take it? How much should I take so that I have a good night's sleep? Is it an hour before bed? Is it 2 hours before bed? Is it 5 minutes before I want to fall asleep, right? A matcha brand, they have this beautiful kind of like little step-by-step guide to make the perfect cup of matcha, right? A brand that I absolutely love personally and that I use every day as part of my workout routines is X Endurance. They actually have a challenge, right? They have a an endurance supplement to make you stronger at like CrossFit and distance running and distant endurance events. Their challenge is go out and don't start taking the product right away. Go out and do your big weekly workout, whether that's a run, a bike, whatever that is. Do your biggest wad of the week if you're a CrossFitter. And then, and measure that, and then start taking our supplement for another 6 days, and then go do that workout again, that same workout again, because they're so confident. And I did this challenge. I can tell you, for anybody who's looking for a little supplement, you should go check them out, is that it works. So you do a workout, and then a week later after taking the supplement, you know that it works because you've taken it and you see the results in your own. So it's like this challenge, right? We're getting people to commit to something and taking it after a workout. So anything you can do to make that initial experience, they need to try it. Any way they can see success, they can have a positive experience. Anything you can do to help them create a routine, giving them a tip about where to store it, how other people are taking it. Anything you can do right there to make that really impactful, because the biggest point of churn is two parts. It's the product just kind of sits there and doesn't ever really get used. And then the other piece would be like a disconnect between how much they have and how much they need over time. So, and which I'm going to talk about next. So we make sure that we have a really great positive initial experience with the product so that people will keep going back to it again and again. If you're selling like a drink mix and it's really weird or clunky to make, or there's chunks in the powder because it wasn't explicit that you needed to use a shaker bottle, right? Or that you didn't send them a shaker bottle, right? Why would they try it again? Right? So we want to make sure that we're empowering like a really great initial experience. Now, the next thing, and often kind of the biggest risk for churn and some of your biggest opportunity for improving retention, is finding ways to make that frequency, the schedule of the subscription, align with realistic consumption. So if you're selling like 3 bags of protein powder on a monthly subscription and the average person goes through a bag of protein powder in 45 days, right? What's going to happen? People are going to churn because they have too much product, or they're going to pause, that type of thing. Now, that might be an extreme example, although it's not that extreme for some of you guys out there. For others, it's trying to think through this frequency adjustment. So a really common practice is that if I buy a product on the 1st, It might not get shipped till like the 3rd or the 4th. Say it takes a day or two for it to hit fulfillment. And then it might be in transit 2 or 3 more days. So let's say even on a good day, I get that product on the 5th, right? That's pretty fast turnaround. Whereas realistically, it might be the 6th, 7th, or 8th. So I get that product on the 5th. Even if I start taking it right away and have a month's supply, depending on when you're sending upcoming billing reminders, I might be getting that billing reminder notice on the 25th or the 27th. I've really only been using the product at most 20 days before that happens, 20 or 21 days. So now those are in good scenarios. Normally the shipping takes a little longer. Somebody doesn't take it right away, right? They start a few days after they get it. It sits on the shelf. And then it's really only 2 weeks they've been using the product or less before your billing reminder comes. Okay. And that can be an issue because people are feeling like I've barely used this or not. And so that's why that upcoming billing reminder is a critical piece. And the subscription portal similarly is a critical piece in churn prevention because we want to make sure we're enabling frequency adjustments really, really easily, right? So I've hyped up the tool Zamo in the past. This is something that they do. You can use quick action links inside of your emails with virtually every single subscription app out there. This is to make it simple to, hey, do I need to delay by 2 weeks? Do I need to adjust from a 1 month to a 2 month frequency? Or do I need to adjust it to a 2 week frequency because I need to get it more frequently than what I initially thought? That's a really important touch point that you want to spend time on, making sure that that's really easy for people to do. Test that those links are working. Test that people are having a positive experience with that. Because that's ultimately one of the simplest problems to solve for, but also one of the biggest opportunities for churn is that people just have too much product. Okay, and then the final place to worry about is really realistically inside the cancellation portal. And so kind of dealing with this metaphor that we've been talking about, right? We have the point of purchase, people are walking in the door. We have these first initial interactions when they're in the room, thinking about how people are adjusting that schedule or frequency might be how often they're in the room or how long that they're in the room. And then cancellation prevention is this idea of like people are going to walk out the door. So within a cancellation portal, a cancellation flow inside the subscriber portal, it's really easy to overcomplicate with tons of different reasons and make it really, really difficult. I suggest to every brand that we talk to and work with to do a few things. First is invest in some content, right? You can create a video or even just an infographic stressing some of the perks or benefits of your product that people need to keep in mind. It's kind of like plastering a big poster over the exit door. Like, you know, if you leave now, you'll never lose that last 10 pounds, right? Inside the gym. And the next thing is like the cancellation reasons that we're trying to collect from people. Now, I talked about up front that I'm not a big discount guy on how we get people in the door, but discounts are one of the most effective strategies at keeping people from leaving. Offering steep discounts, 25, 35%, is one of the simplest and most effective ways to get people to not cancel, right? Now, we can get very nuanced in how we do that, whether we're offering steeper discounts to people that have been around longer or not. For most of you that are kind of still getting your feet under you in the subscription space, I would not worry too much about all the different segmenting and filtering you can do on some of the subscription apps to make this really, really nuanced. Instead, let's focus on collecting some of our key reasons, including other, and testing some offers and making sure we have some content available in the cancellation portal. The next thing is making sure that we have really specific reasons addressed, right? So if a really common reason that somebody is canceling is that they don't like the flavor, then we need a reason I don't like the flavor with the option to swap to a different flavor, right? If it's, I want to try a different product, or if it's, say, I have too much product. I do like getting into that reason a little bit, like, do I have too much product because I haven't never used it, or do I have too much product because I'm on the wrong schedule? If I have too much product because I'm on the wrong schedule, that's where we can leverage the frequency and scheduling adjustment tools within the subscription app, like you can delay or skip an order type of thing to make that work really, really well. And again, a really common reason will be it's too expensive. That's where big discounts come into play. I will say when I do a lot of audits, I find that they're only using like the discount on it's too expensive. I like throwing the discount into other and some of the other reasons that you have as cancellation reasons, because again, I know that discounts are going to be the most effective strategy after you get at the very specific treatments that you can go after. So coming back from this at a high level, we want to really make sure we're setting people up for success, how we're offering things to people and getting them in the door. We're educating them. We're ensuring that they get right on the right schedule. As a very quick example of this, I've been using Dollar Shave Club razor subscription for about 8 years now, and I get a little 4-pack delivered like every other month. So I don't go through those razors very quickly, and it took me a couple tries to get that frequency right. But once I did, I've been around for years because it's part of my routine. So the idea is help people get their routine nailed, and then cancellation flows and surveys should be looked at as a backstop. That is the last resort from getting people to go. What we do when we look at cancellations is we take a step back from this and we look at all these reasons why people come in. We look at questions people might have. We look at reasons people cancel, and we try to take all of those things out, and then you can actually plug them back into other pieces, right? So if somebody doesn't believe the product is working, which is a really common reason in supplements, we should spend more time educating people when they're onboarding to the subscription about how the product works and setting expectations for them, right? If somebody's canceling because they have too much product on hand, we need to make sure that upcoming billing reminder email has frequency adjustments inside of it. Or we look at the product page. Are we pushing people into a faster subscription than what the bulk of people actually need? I know that it's really enticing to say, hey, I'd like to sell this every 2 weeks, or hey, most people only want this every other month, but we're going to make the default option the 1 month subscription. If you're seeing a ton of churn, it actually makes more sense to test that to see if we can default to the 2 month option, if that makes sense. So we start pulling out things that are causing people to leave and start to address that earlier on, how people come in, how we're educating them, how we're reminding them about their order, and then ultimately cancellation. That's the secret behind churn prevention, is creating a little bit of a process where we're reevaluating how people are seeing, we're paying attention to complaints and reasons people don't like the product or had a bad experience, and then we're going upstream in that subscription experience and trying to fix those things before they happen, if that makes sense. Now, as a quick little note, as a little add-on, as a tip, if you feel like you're getting a pretty good handle on churn prevention, I want you to start thinking about subscriber activation. How can we get people that come in and that are having positive experiences, how can we expand those customers? We can use the upcoming billing reminder email to upsell or in them into a longer subscription commitment or cross-sell them into other products. We can leverage the subscription portal with some of those things as well. We can also look at targeted inserts, free gifts, or even campaigns, email campaigns at certain milestones in the subscriber life cycle, where we're looking to try to activate them and get more from them. Circling back on an example of this, X Endurance, that brand I mentioned, I interviewed one of their co-founders a long time ago, one of our first interviews on this podcast, and he talked about they were listening to a lot of customers, and one of the things they started talking, because they sell to a lot of people that are spending time outdoors, was actually looking at skincare. So they're a supplement company that launched some skincare products for those said subscribers because they were getting feedback on what they really cared about and really wanted, right? So we pay attention to those subscribers. We develop and release products for those subscribers. We're doing everything we can to give them a reason to stay, as opposed to just worrying about what makes them leave, if that makes sense. A little bit of nuance. Okay, that's it for this week's dose. We dove into all about churn prevention and how you should be looking at that. Sometimes I wish I had a big whiteboard so I could draw all these ideas up for you and look at them like that way. I do think it does help to visualize the subscriber journey and write down potential risks and issues that people are having, so that you can then look at that journey where you can make some updates or some changes. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, drop some comments on this video, or reach out at matt@thesubscriptiondoc.com. That is it for this week's dose. I will see you next Tuesday for another episode of Subscription Prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.